How has Indian secularism benefited Islam?
I think that Indian secularism is not different from secularism of other countries. Uh, All the all the secularism in all countries is one and the same. And I think that secularism is pro-Islamic concept, very pro, because secularists believe in freedom and freedom of thought and equality in opportunities. So where there is equal opportunities and also freedom of thought, that is very good for Islam. In this country, we enjoy secularism, and I can say that due to Indian secularism, we are able to spread our mission freely without any restriction. So secularism is very good for us, very helpful for us. There is no contradiction between Islam and secularism at all.
So my question is, what do you wish all Americans knew about Islam?
I think Americans are very helpful for us, for Islam, because according to my survey, I can say that America is very, very helpful for Muslims and Islam. Muslims are living in great numbers in America, and they have no restriction at all. They enjoy freedom and equal status, no discrimination at all. So, present American culture is secular culture in true sense of the word, and secular culture is very helpful for Islam or Muslims. So I'm thankful to Americans. They have given all kind of opportunity for Muslims in their country.
दादा इनका क्वेश्चन दूसरा है. तो क्वेश्चन ये है कि व्हाट डू यू थिंक ऑल अमेरिकन्स शुड नो अबाउट इस्लाम?
I think that Americans should know, but they know already, they know that there is no place of violence in Islam. There is no place for violence in Islam. Islam is totally a pro-peace religion. Islamic method is peaceful method. And if there are some unwanted news in media, that is not that reflect the American society. That reflects some very small corner of American society. America is very, very secular and open society, and personally I have no complaint against Americans. No complaint at all.
एक क्वेश्चन आया है कि क्या करना चाहिए कि लोगों की थिंकिंग जो नेगेटिव हो गई है उसको पॉजिटिव बनाना, कैसे बनाना चाहिए, शिफ्ट कैसे करना चाहिए नेगेटिव थिंकिंग को पॉजिटिव थिंकिंग में?
I think that basic reason is human psychology. Man by nature wants yani, the whole, and we can achieve only a part of our wishes. So we must discover that this world, the creation plan of God is not of such kind that we can achieve all that thing we want. We, by nature, we want the whole, but according to the creation plan of God, we can achieve only the part. So this is the law of nature. If we know this law of nature, then all kinds of complaint or negative thinking will be will go automatically.
Yeah, so just to add on to that, he always emphasizes to everyone that when you're positive, then your mind becomes more creative, and it is this creative mind that does a lot of great things. But if you're negative, your mind will not come up with ideas. So negativity takes you away from constructive activities. Whereas if you're positive, then you can achieve a lot of things. So like on a similar sense, somebody asked him about provocation. So you can understand from this. He says that when you are getting provoked, which means that you're turning negative, you are actually allowing someone to dictate you. So he says, don't allow anyone to dictate you. So when you are positive in a negative situation, you will be able to give a thoughtful response, and a thoughtful response always yields a positive result.
Well, you talked a lot about how there is no place for violence in the Quran, and I just wondered if you could maybe talk about why there is the problem of misinterpreting the Quran to use violence, and maybe what ways can be used to remedy that.
दादा, ये क्वेश्चन है कि कुरान में वैसे तो पीस की बातें हैं, लेकिन कुरान की कुछ वर्सेस को मिस इंटरप्रेट करके लोग वायलेंस करते हैं, मुस्लिम्स वायलेंस करते हैं. तो ऐसा क्यों है और इस प्रॉब्लम को कैसे सॉल्व कर सकते हैं?
All those verses were revealed at the time of war, not in the time of peace. No such verse were revealed when there was peace. For example, if you see the verses that were revealed in Mecca, you will find there is no such verse. Only when Prophet migrated from Mecca and settled in Medina, these verses were revealed, because those idol worshippers became hostile and they wanted to wage war. So before this situation, when there was no war, no verse was revealed in the Quran. But when idol worshippers became hostile and they waged war, so these verses were revealed. So in this sense, all those verses are defensive. Islam believes in defensive war and not offensive war. When there is an attack, there is aggressive activity, then Muslims are allowed to go to war as defense. Otherwise, there is no war in Islam at all.
दादा, एक इनका पॉइंट ये भी था कि इन वर्सेस को मिस इंटरप्रेट क्यों करते हैं मुस्लिम्स, और इन वर्सेस को लेकर फिर वायलेंस करते हैं.
अच्छा, interpretations are always open. In law, in constitution, everywhere there are different interpretations. So you cannot close the door of such difference of opinion. You can see the Quran directly. Don't see those interpretations. The field of interpretation is always open. So if you go through Quran directly, you will find that those verses are very clear that Muslims are allowed for fighting only in such situation when there is attack, otherwise not. Don't see their interpretation, but you guard on your own. Then you will find that these verses are very clear that they are defensive verses and not offensive verses.
You brought up the difference between defensive and offensive, like when it's okay to use violence. Do you ever find that the difference between these two is, or that some people misinterpret and believe that the offensive violence is actually defensive? Is there ever a misunderstanding there? Kind of like a misinterpretation as well.
मौलाना वो उनका सवाल ये है कि जो आपने बात करी थी डिफेंसिव और ऑफेंसिव वॉर के बारे में, तो वो ये कह रहे हैं कि आज की डेट में जो लोग वॉर कर रहे हैं वो इस इक्वेशन को नहीं समझ पा रहे कि डिफेंसिव वॉर और ऑफेंसिव वॉर जो प्रॉफिट ने करी थी, और वो कर तो ऑफेंसिव वॉर रहे हैं लेकिन उनके माइंड में ये है कि शायद वो डिफेंसिव वॉर कर रहे हैं. तो क्या यही है क्या कि उनकी अंडरस्टैंडिंग करेक्ट नहीं है उन लोगों की?
These wars waged by Muslims are not Islamic war. They are quite wrong, because one principle of Islam in this regard is that ar-rahilu lil imam. Ar-rahilu lil imam means to wage a war is a prerogative of an state. Other than a state, no authority can wage a war. So all these things, if you see, so in these wars, no state is involved. All these wars are non-state war. So these wars are quite un-Islamic, because when only state can wage a war and states are not involved in this war, so these wars are not Islamic war. It is deviation from Islam.
What role does interreligious dialogue play in peacemaking, and how can we facilitate that?
What role does interreligious dialogue play in peacemaking? Interreligious dialogue.
Interreligious dialogue is very important. Interreligious dialogue means peaceful effort to establish interreligious harmony. The purpose of interreligious dialogue is to establish peace among different religions and different groups. So it's very important. We are also involved in this process. So, although results are not very satisfactory, but don't see the result, but see the object. If object is good, then you have to proceed.
How can we facilitate that?
दादा एक सेकंड पार्ट है इस क्वेश्चन का कि हाउ टू फैसिलिटेट इंटररिलीजियस डायलॉग.
I think that we have to enter in such effect by the positive spirit. Positive spirit, I mean learning spirit.
Spirit.
Learning spirit. We have to try to learn from others rather than try to defeat them. Interreligious dialogue are not for a debate. It is for mutual learning. So we have to inculcate the spirit of mutual learning, and then we can make useful of our activities in this regard.
The first thing that we have all been created by the same God, same Creator. We are all God's servants. So this is something common between all of us. So our attitude should be to learn from one another, as Maulana has just said, that if there are many things which we don't like in others, but there are other things also which we like. So what I do is that what I like, I take that. What I dislike, I ignore that. So everyone, like my father gives an example of honeybee. That honeybee goes to a jungle there she to find nectar inside the flowers. No, it ignores everything. She seeks nectar. So we have also the Quran gives this example. That means that we have to learn from the honeybee also. Honeybee is also our teacher. So we have to find nectar in everyone. Everyone has something good in him or her. So this is the common ground that is very, very necessary for an interfaith dialogue to be successful. But what we do usually that we think we are superior and we know everything, we don't have to learn from others. So this attitude must go. So this spiritual and intellectual development can take place only by learning from everyone. We can't read books all the time. And because everyone has been given intelligence by the Creator, and everyone has different experiences. So we can learn from everyone, and in this way we can enhance our spirituality. Spirituality and intellectual development is one and the same.
Good evening, everybody. As my sister just talked about honeybee, how she extracts the nectar from the flowers. So this is very important example for understanding spiritual development, because we have to extract spirituality from all experiences that we have in daily life. Even a glass of water can enhance your spirituality. When you will think deeply about it, you will reflect on the signs of God, because the Quran says that we have given you signs in the universe and in yourself. So the human body, our existence, is a great sign to reflect and think deeply how Creator has created us. And everything that exists in the universe is a sign to think deeply, to reflect, to ponder, and that is called tadabbur in Quran, to draw lessons from daily experiences. So this is how we can enhance our spirituality.